Welcome back to the Women's Basketball Summit, the online platform for players, coaches, and parents. Today, my guest is Abby Gordon, and we will be talking about the physical therapist side of basketball. So, Abby, welcome to the call.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm excited to have you because I know you have spent a lot of time consulting with some WNBA teams, so I think you have a very unique perspective. But for everyone listening to the call, if they're not familiar with you, let's touch on your background first.
Sure. So I'm currently the Seattle Storm physical therapist, and that is a consultation role, which is great. I also work full-time at Seattle Children's Hospital in their sports physical therapy department in their North Clinic. Prior to that, I went to the University of Connecticut for my PT schooling as well as my undergraduate schooling, and I did 4 years working with the Connecticut Sun WNBA team before I did PT school, and I was a manager for UConn women's basketball when I was in college.
So you are all about basketball.
Yeah, I am.
So let's talk about right now your work at the Children's Hospital in Seattle. Like, what type of kids are you seeing in the clinic?
Sure. So physical therapy is really cool because we have the opportunity to work in a lot of different environments. And so I get the opportunity to work on the sidelines as well as in a clinic, and others work in hospitals or in schools. And so what I do in the clinic is work with children usually around age 5 until 21 is the top limit of what we see at Seattle Children's. And so we're treating any sports injury that you might experience, but it's also not sport injuries. It's I fell, I broke my arm. A lot of common injuries are with the trampoline parks that seem to be really popular. So it's sports injuries and rehabbing those, broken bones, muscle injuries, ankle sprains, that kind of stuff. It's not neurological conditions, which we have a separate department that treats those. And sometimes those are overlapping. You certainly have children who might have developmental disabilities who sprain their ankle, and then we kind of share those. But mostly it's the injuries that you are looking to get back to sport or function. We get lots of kids who are in marching band who might have gotten injured from their activities too. So it's not all sports, but it's mostly athletes.
Got it. And with the athletes you see, female athletes, are you seeing common injuries like hamstring pulls, ACLs, hip injuries? What do you see with the female athletes?
So most commonly, and I also did my thesis on this in PT school, most commonly is ankle sprains, and that's consistent with women's basketball and women's soccer. We see a lot of back injuries with all sports, particularly gymnastics, but we see a little bit of everything. But I would say I spend the most of my time with kids who've had ankle sprains and kids who have knee pain who don't necessarily need surgery. We certainly see the kids who've had surgeries for lots of different knee issues, including the ACL, but there's a lot of, especially young female athletes who have knee pain that doesn't require surgery, and that's one of the reasons why I was excited to talk to you, because I know the ACL is such a common topic, and it's really important to talk about, especially in this population, but we have to also pay attention to the kids who have knee pain otherwise, because we know that the biggest risk factor for a future injury is having a present injury. So if you have had knee pain at some point in your life and it didn't require surgery and it wasn't a torn ACL, it could be a risk factor for later on. So we want to treat that and get ourselves moving better when it's just, oh, my knee hurts, not needing surgery and a much longer rehab.
So when you see these athletes that have knee pain, is there a common thread to why they have knee pain?
Yeah, there is usually a common thread. The movement patterns are usually pretty similar. They usually like to squat really on their toes and having their heels come off the ground, which makes sense in a rebounding perspective. When you grab a rebound, you're not going to land with your feet flat on the ground. You're going to probably be more on your toes and then flatten your feet. But they usually are using the front side of their body a lot more than the back side of their body, and they develop strength. I don't want to say imbalances, but they just use their body in a way that doesn't use it optimally. And so they're usually really, really strong in their quads and less strong in their glutes and hamstrings. And so we spend a lot of time working on hip strength, movement patterns, and also on ankle flexibility if they need that. If they've recently had growth spurts, a lot of the times they're long-legged girls, and they usually aren't super, super flexible if they've just had a big growth spurt. So strengthening helps them to kind of feel less tightness throughout that posterior side.
I'm glad you mentioned something about the ankles, because I mean, I'm a firm believer that, especially with basketball players, we wear these big bulky sneakers, we tape up our ankles, we wear ankle braces, and that's great. I know why we do it, but the ankles are meant to be mobile. So when you're seeing like ankle sprains, ankle injuries, and also knee pain, are you addressing like that these kids, like do these kids have no ankle mobility? Do you find that with people are having knee pain, like their ankles aren't moving?
They certainly have some ankle mobility. We use a lot of clearance tests for different things. I think the reason why we do that is because it's easy for a kid to say, I can't run because I haven't met this goal in my recovery yet, or I can't play basketball because I haven't passed these 3 tests yet. So I don't really, if an athlete has been held out from participation in a sport, I have tests that I use to say, you pass these tests, you can go back to this portion. I don't usually tell people they have to stop, but if someone else, the physician, has told them to stop, I say, we're going to meet these goals, and then you can return to your participation. So generally, they're still playing to some extent, or they're still running, and they may not have passed the clearance test for ankle mobility. And so we're going to work on that in their home exercise programs, or if the coaches are communicating with us, we'll get them to include it in the whole team's warm-up programs, and then their ankle mobility will improve. Now, with ankle sprains specifically, there's always the big conversation of, do I let my child use braces, or do I want them taping, or do I not? And I think that it's a hard decision to make. I think it's unique to what injuries each kid had. But I think that initially, especially at practice where your own teammates shouldn't be hurting each other, probably wearing ankle braces is okay while you're getting stronger and more stabilized. And then you should be able to wean your way out so that you can potentially decrease risk of injuries further up the chain. The foot is the first thing that hits the court. And so if it's too immobilized, you could potentially have issues at the knees and the hips. And so we don't want to make an ankle sprain be the reason why we have these other issues in the knee, but those are individual choices based on the presentation you have when you see your provider.
Yeah, a lot of people know how I feel about ankle braces and taping, and I think you said it perfectly. Like, as they're moving through the rehab process, I think it's okay to do, but I think eventually, like, you should be strong enough to not be wearing the brace, because as you said, it could cause other problems. I played basketball. I've messed up both my ankles, and we taped them to no end. And to this day, 15, 20 years later, like, my ankles are my biggest complaint about playing basketball. Knock on wood, no knee, no nothing, but my ankles every once in a while give a good pop. And it's honestly because, like, big basketball sneakers, we had to tape them, but no one did anything to kind of like move the feet around, move the ankles around. So I think what you just said there was just dead on, and it was perfect. So
yeah.
You've touched on this a little bit. So if a kid or a female athlete experiencing knee pain, you've talked about the posterior chain, or they're having like ankle issues, what would be, like, for the athletes, parents listening, what would be your recommendations they should be doing?
So many choices. And I think that's great. I think it's great that they don't have to do one specific thing. I think that one key thing is, a lot of the time, by the time a child comes to see me, they've had pain for kind of a long time. And that's a lot harder to deal with, because then you have to treat pain and get that calmed down before you can really focus on the reasons behind it. Because pain is just saying something's not right. It's never really the problem. It's just a symptom of something else. So with regard to what people can do, I always say, go see a physical therapist. In some states, you don't even have to go see a doctor first. In others, you do. But get a movement assessment and get some things going on where it's not like you have pain all the time, every day, getting in and out of a chair. It's only, I felt a little something funny when I was at practice yesterday. Let's get it fixed, because maybe the whole team is experiencing this beginning symptoms. And if you put it in your warm-up program, or if the team has a strength coach come in and kind of give you some things to work on, there's lots of options. So a physical therapist for sure is always, what I advocate for, or seeing your doctor to recommend physical therapy, see a strength coach, or have someone check your movement patterns. You've got strength and conditioning coaches, you've got personal trainers. My biggest thing has been, which has been really interesting, because I work, obviously my clinic is located near several schools. My biggest interest has been when I've seen 3 swimmers from the same swim team with the same problem, where it's like something is missing in your team's training that could be preventing these injuries. So if you have 2 kids on your team that have ankle sprains, something's missing from your warm-ups or something's missing from your daily drills, and you need to be collectively saying, hey coach, can we have somebody come and advise us on how we can better perform? Because rehab is performance enhancement, is training, they're all the same thing. We all are trying to make our athletes move optimally.
Absolutely. And like, that was a perfect response. But we, as like a sports performance coach, a physical therapist, we all need to work together, because it's about bettering the athlete. And I know, especially in this field, people, you know, they have big egos. They don't want to be working with everyone else. So I'm glad you said that. So let's kind of transfer and talk about your time consulting with some of the WNBA teams. Like, what are the common injuries, or like why your services are needed with these WNBA players?
Well, fortunately, they don't need me very much, because they've been around so long, and we have a big collaborative team. We have an athletic trainer, we have a strength and conditioning coach, we have a massage therapist, a chiropractor, I'm a physical therapist, we have a physician, a surgeon, we have a whole team, and an acupuncturist for that matter. So we have the whole crew available. The injuries that we see at the WNBA are the same as the injuries we see at the kids level, which is fascinating. At the kid level, an ankle sprain usually heals pretty fast because they're still young and growing, but they've never experienced pain and they don't know how much to push themselves as much, versus at that elite level, it's, I sprained my ankle again, I'm going to take a day, wear a boot, and then we're going to wean out of it. And it's all management of load. So, it's understanding how much can I push someone without crossing the barrier to make this last even longer. But yeah, ankle sprains at the WNBA level are still the most common thing we see. And then also you get the occasional knee pain that really isn't an ACL or isn't a surgical consideration. And then we also get really unique different things. You get a couple lacerations when, like to an eyebrow, or you get a broken rib, and concussions. The circumstances are different because you're treating the athlete immediately when something happens on game day, versus 2 weeks later when they've gone to see the doctor, had an x-ray, and then come to the clinic. But the injuries are pretty much the same when it comes to most common.
So before a game, are you there before every game, the home games?
Yeah, so for the Storm, I'm at every home game. I'm there 2 hours before, and that's just to be available to give any feedback, check in on, see how everybody's feeling, do some pre-game stretches, depending on the beauty of the WNBA is whatever the player's warm-up routine is, that's what they get. So if they like being stretched, they get stretched. If they don't want to be stretched, then they're going to do their own routines. And of course they do some of the warm-up drills and layup lines and things like that as a team on the court, but they're able to do things on an individualized basis based on what they need. One player's hips might feel tight, so she wants that taken care of. The chiropractor's there if you want an adjustment or if you feel like that's necessary. The team doctor will be available for consultation then too. So yeah, game day is 2 hours before, getting them ready, and then if someone happens to get hurt on the court and needs to be taken into the athletic training room, the Storm has structured it interestingly. So our team athletic trainer will stay on the court in case there's another injury on the court in the urgent response, and I'll go back with the team doctor. And, sometimes that's get the x-ray technician if we need it. Sometimes it's, can you make an ice bag? We're just going to ice it down and see if it calms down really quick. Sometimes it's, hey, do a quick treatment. It's variable, but I get to do the in-game assistance for, let's get this person back on the court as fast as we can.
Nice.
And then post-game is we start recovery. The second the clock hits 0, we're recovering for tomorrow's practice, tomorrow's travel, tomorrow's next game preparations. And so, I'm helping with getting some of the ice ready. I'm helping tell the strength coach, hey, this person is feeling a little bit stiff in their back. Can you change their program tomorrow to do something with a little more mobility? And our strength coach is amazing, so that helps that she's really intuitive. But sometimes, because I'm in the locker room post game and she isn't, it's easy for me to say, hey, this one just told me that they're feeling like this is going on. Can we modify?
Nice. So obviously, like Sue Bird, we know, everyone listening should know, plays for the Seattle Storm. She's been playing for a very long time in the WNBA. I'm sure she has her routine. She knows what works for her body. She knows what doesn't. But you have like the rookies that are coming in. Do you advise them, try to help them come up with a plan? Because I'm sure when I played college too, like everyone did everything for me. Like my meals were taken care of, like my laundry was taken care of. So like you go to the WNBA, I'm guessing like it's not the NBA. You're not getting taken care of that. So do you guys need to advise the younger athletes on like how to take care of their body or stuff that you're telling them?
Yeah. So it's interesting because I don't think that was meant to be part of the role as the team physical therapist or even as the team strength coach, who, we're really good friends. So we spend a lot of time, we do all of our player assessments at the beginning of the season together because it's movement patterns. And so when we brought rookies through over the last several years, we always ask them, how are you doing? Are you nervous? Is there anything we can help you with? And a few times with rookies, we've had I've been fed and I've had people telling me where to be at every minute for so long. Can you tell me where the nearest grocery store is? And can you help recommend some things I should get? I mean, they're coming into a WNBA team. They have an apartment that's their own with an empty refrigerator in it and pots and pans for them. But if they've never cooked before, then they're going to have to learn pretty quickly. Fortunately, we have Alicia Clark is an amazing cook, and I think she's a generous soul, so she probably helps them a little bit with learning how to cook. But it was really easy to tell a couple of them in the past, like, these are the names of the local grocery stores. Find some things that are easy to grab for when you're going to practice so that you have fuel for afterwards. But you need to make sure you're eating breakfast before you go to practice. You need to make sure you're hydrating, and you make sure you've got your fruits and vegetables. These are conversations you've had your whole life, but somebody else was putting a salad in front of you and you ate it. Now you have to figure out what works best for you. And they'll also see a nutritionist, and they'll also have these things available to them. And fortunately, you have veteran players like Sue Bird who are very in tune to what fuels her. And so she will also obviously give assistance and guidance when it's asked for. She doesn't eat certain foods because they don't feel good for her when she's playing. So some of the athletes choose to get tested for sensitivities to different foods. But that's not really in the physical therapy realm. It's just what I observe that, they sometimes try to figure out, like, I don't feel great, what's going on? And then some of them just choose, I don't eat dairy because it messes with my stomach if I eat it on a game day.
Yeah, no, and I mean, when I played basketball, I could have ate like a Burger King cheeseburger and went and played, and I was totally fine. But as I got older and a little bit in college, like what I did in high school, you can't get away with it. So it's about learning kind of what works for your body. So again, you've consulted with a couple WNBA teams. You're working with, athletes, in the clinic. What do you see? Like if I said give like 1 to 3 recommendations, advice for everyone out there, what would you say you'd give?
From a physical therapy perspective, the advice I give is know when your body isn't feeling normal, even if you can't describe what it is, and then tell someone. In the youth athletes, you have basketball players who may only have their coaches. They may not have a strength coach available to them, which is unfortunate because I think that all of these girls would benefit from being stronger. But know that normally you feel one way and today doesn't feel right, and tell someone. Because if it's a simple thing of, I had 3 exams, I didn't sleep last night, and so I'm tired, these have risk factors for injury. So I think just knowing what you feel like on a good day versus what a bad day is, you might be able to express to your coach, I'm not feeling so great today, and we're playing an opponent who we know we're going to wipe across the court. Like, maybe you only play half as many minutes just because you're fatigued. So that's one thing. Another thing is that I think there is strong benefit to routine, and I think that warm-ups for your team are a huge way to implement routine, but to focus on how you move. I've seen too many times, and I've worked with elite teams, I've seen too many times where warm-ups are a stretching circle of, hey, what movie did you go to last night? Warm-up routines are purposeful movement, and they should be intentional to get you stronger. You don't have to be doing heavy squats in order to get stronger. You could do 10 body weight squats on the sideline, do some lunges, and then do a little bit of single leg activity work, and be focused on moving well before you play and put yourself in a better position to stay healthy. And I think the last big key is understand that you play a sport that has some risks as far as risk of injury, but every sport does. And so there's huge benefit to playing or participating in other sports or doing something different other than basketball year round. The court is a hard surface. If you like soccer, it's a soft surface, and you move very differently, especially upper body, because basketball, people always are talking about the knees and the ankles with basketball, but it's an upper body sport. You're shooting all the time. We certainly treat shoulders around the WNBA for injury. So I think there's big benefit to finding another activity, whether that be getting into a weight room in the off season or playing a different sport. Play golf. Do something to stress your body differently. And those would be my three big takeaways. And if you ask a lot of the WNBA players, most of them played a different sport. Diana Taurasi has talked about extensively how much soccer she used to play. I mean, Jewell Loyd loves tennis. It comes up often. We were watching the U.S. Open in the training room a little bit before the game the other day. And it's funny because it's all about how the body moves, you know? So basketball players move their bodies, and so do tennis players, but they move kind of differently based on the demands of their sport. Yeah, no, that's some great advice you just gave. I mean, one of the reasons I want to talk to you, you offer a very unique perspective as you are, a physical therapist with the WNBA teams. You work with a few of them. Yeah, you've been around the UConn women's basketball team. You're in a clinic. So you offer a very unique perspective that you are kind of in the trenches every day. So I think it's important. As we wrap up this call, is there anything else you want to add? So many, it's basketball is so fun. I think that that's important to remember. I think that if you're hoping to make it big, you have to love the game, because you can see the joy on the faces of these athletes. Even with all of the political stuff that's going on in the social media that you see, there's still joy in playing basketball. And I think that's awesome. I think that I would love this opportunity to plug that if you are a high school level athlete, you should be watching some WNBA basketball. And I don't say that because I want people watching the Storm. I say that because I grew up when the WNBA was just starting, and so I didn't really have the option to see what the best basketball looks like. But now everyone has this opportunity, and a lot of people don't take it. It's really interesting when I ask young female basketball players in the clinic, oh, do you ever watch the Storm? And they don't, and they're in Seattle. And I'm just like, you need to watch, we're playing on Friday. Or, I think there's big benefit to just seeing what the best are doing and what they can do consistently. So yeah, I think that's a shameless plug for Watch the Storm. I'll be standing behind the bench if they're at home, and I'll wave to you, and and have fun. Yeah, I mean, no, those were two great pieces of advice. But yes, it's actually ridiculous to me that when I talk to my female athletes and you ask them that who is some of the best players in the country in college or the WNBA, they have no clue. And I'm like, well, what basketball do you watch? And they're like, oh, the WNBA, the NBA. And I'm like, well, that's great, but you're not going to play in the NBA. If your goal is to play in the WNBA, you need to watch it. You need to educate yourself, but go to a game. It's a physical game. Yeah, go to college basketball games too. I mean, there's colleges everywhere. But if you open your eyes and go see a game, you're going to be like, oh my God, I need to do more than what I'm doing now, if this is really what you want to do. So I thought that was just a great piece of advice. If people want to talk to you, learn more about you, where can they find you, social media, website? Sure. I like social media. I think that's a big thing going on in women's sports right now. So I'm kind of all over there, especially with the Storm in the playoffs. Instagram is YaleBabe55, YaleBabe 55. I'm also on Twitter, agordon55. And then I have a blog, which is aigdpt.blogspot.com.
Awesome. So Abby, it's a pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to connecting with you in the future.
You too. Thanks for having me.